Hi, I'm LA Wilshaw, and I'm hosting a podcast with a difference. Racing Beyond Barriers is inclusive of motorsport personnel and racing fans who have got chronic conditions, disabilities, and impairments. My guest this week is no other than Mr. Coffee Corner himself. It's Terry Widdows. Yeah!
I've done myself.
Clap yourself. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's been too long. We should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it was totally awesome last year to actually meet you face to face as we were both heading towards the accreditation centre in at Silverstone. So it's almost that time of year again.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, it creeps up, doesn't it? Too fast.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So for those people who aren't following you yet, why are you not following Terry? But if you're not following Terry yet, let everyone know who you are, what content you create, and where to find you.
Yeah, so I'm Terry and I run Coffee Corner Motorsport. So basically, I started off doing Formula One news and it's now branched into F2, F1 Academy, IndyCar, Formula E, MotoGP. So yeah, it's got bigger and bigger and bigger. It's kind of snowballed down there. So it's Coffee Corner Motorsport on all social medias, and the website's coffeecornermotorsport.com as well. So I launched a website last year, and that's enabled me to just branch out into a lot of the feeder series and get some better opportunities that way. So yeah, that's where to find me really.
Perfect. What inspired you to start this in the first place?
Um, to be honest, it was a accumulation of a lot of things. So I've been a motorsport fan for since I was growing up. My dad introduced me to it at an early age. We sat and watched Formula One, MotoGP, all those things. So it's without giving too much of my age away, it's over 30 years of being a fan now. And I used to work in retail, so nothing to do with the sport. Used to follow it very loosely as a fan, so very much like most fans growing up through the sport, peaks and troughs. Very invested during the sort of Schumacher, Senna years. Died off a bit, come back, Hamilton sort of era, and then Drive to Survive did it. But I gave up work about 5 years ago to care for our disabled children, and to be honest, I found myself really at a loss with what to do. It was a very sudden thing. I stopped working. I went from running multi-million-pound business to just doing what I saw was not a value job, which now is really sort of bad to think of it that way. But at the time, I beat myself up quite a lot about it. I wasn't using my skills, or I didn't feel I was kind of like I didn't have a place, to be honest. And then I just started looking at what to do. And motorsport content was something I always followed, but I get really annoyed with clickbait articles. It's really I'm one for facts and figures and the truth, and I hate opening an article and seeing it full of adverts and seeing it full of not actually what the headline said, or it's been misinterpreted. So I thought, is there a place to do something a little bit different where I can just focus on the facts, focus on the technical side a bit more, focus on stuff which me as a fan want to see, and is there a market out there? So it started off with a bit of a TikTok channel where I just brought daily news with a very short video, and it's kind of just snowballed and grown and grown and grown into what it is now, which is across all the media channels and a website as well. And like I said, across all the series. So it's kind of had a big knock-on effect, but it's done wonders for my mental health in terms of what I can now see now in terms of bringing new skills, learning new stuff, developing new things, and kind of just finding a place really again.
Yeah. Do you have any ambitions for maybe later down the line when your children are perhaps a little bit older?
Um, I thought about it because as it's got bigger, it naturally plays on your mind. You're like, actually, I do everything from the confines of this shed, and it's a newly fitted out great shed, which I absolutely love.
It looks great.
But there is, yeah. This is my dad. I went to my dad with a vision of what can I turn this into after just having a box standard shed, and he was like, "What do you want?" And I went, "I want this." And he kind of looked at me. I went, "Really?" And I went, "Can we do it?" And he went, "We can do anything if we put our minds to it." So neither of us had done it before. So this has all been kitted all out. The structure was there, the electrics were there, but all the soundproof and everything was put in by me and my dad, which kind of is quite a good thing as well. It's we made some great memories over the years, and it's another thing where it's nice to have him as part of something so fundamental to Coffee Corner Motorsport in terms of the building side of it. So yeah, huge respect to him for helping me out when I just ring him and go help. I know what I want, but I can't do it myself.
Yeah, thanks,
So yeah,
Dad.
it's
That's
just
well supported dad,
yeah,
supportive dad, isn't it?
absolutely. So I think ultimately I'd like to do more of it, but I'm also very conscious of it's something I started very much as an escape, and I'm very keen to keep it as that, even though it's grown and grown. So I do want to do more, but I don't think I'll be in the realms of doing it full time and traveling to lots and lots of things. I think it would be very selective and very much when it fitted in, rather than joining that travelling circus, as we all know, of the motorsport calendar and going everywhere. To be honest, so yeah, more of a dip my toe in every so often. I've done a couple of things with Formula E and like you say with Silverstone, bits like that. So I like doing that, and I like doing other events. So at the moment, that kind of fits with us as a family as well.
Yeah, I think what I really like about your content is that, and you don't have to give away any secrets, if you have them, in that, is that a cupboard beside you there? But you do,
Yeah,
your insight is usually very good and spot on, and whether you have, a lot of us have connections in the paddock anyway, so of course, we can call on those people that are living it every single day. But
yeah,
that's what I like about your content, because regardless of who you might know, or who you're friends with, is that it's usually quite accurate. Especially when it comes to rumors. I mean, I don't like rumor mongering. If
yeah.
it's, we all know there are platforms out there that make quite a lot of speculations, and some of them quite outrageous, but your content is usually quite spot on, so I think that that's to be applauded.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I've got the natural contacts, which have actually got a lot more and built up a lot more. So I get a lot of stuff from the teams now, which I never had before when I first started out. So a lot of it you get direct, as you know, which is a whole lot easier when you're getting stuff direct from the teams. It's factual. It saves that research step as well. And I think I've just found an ability to piece stuff together. I can normally see patterns emerging in what's going on. So, as we know, every team will follow a certain degree of patterns on what they do. And you can normally see some things emerging around, whether or not there's rumours about what they're doing, how the social media's changed, what they're angling towards. And I seem to be able to remember stuff which I probably shouldn't remember, where I'll kind of go, actually, that's the ADHD in me, where I'll go, actually, I remember that from 6 months ago, that interview, and I can find that interview, dig out and go, that now makes more sense, and it kind of laid the foundation, and follow the trail, and then you get it backed up. And I think it's really hard because, as you know, everything starts as a rumour. Ultimately, everything we hear with the news is technically a rumour when it starts. There's just some with more substance to follow it through than what others give, to be honest.
Yeah, that's really interesting, what you've just said there about patterns, because not everybody can see those patterns. And um, I kind of, and you've mentioned ADHD, and this is my next part of this chat with you. And I know you're happy to talk about your conditions.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that pattern recognition, maybe I don't know everybody in the world. I don't know all, 7 billion people on the planet, but I think that's a trait of ADHD anyway, to be able to pick up on patterns like that. So let us know about, your conditions and how they affect you, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I've got ADHD, and there's always been suspected autism and children suffer from it. I've never gone through the formal diagnosis, because when I was growing up, you kind of didn't. But there's some things I love patterns, I love routines, I love that side of things. So for me, it's very much that's what I like doing. I like that structure, that routine, that pattern, that recognition, all those things I've talked about. And I've seen it more now because of the children, their disabilities. So it's kind of opened my eyes a lot more to it. I think it was very suppressed as I was growing up. Naturally aided school child, you would kind of refer to more as a naughty child with, they talked about great potential, never paid attention, was like classic on school reports, that sort of things. Whereas now, obviously, there's a lot more recognition of it going on. So certainly, with what our children are going through, and they've got autism, ADHD, amongst some muscular and some other disabilities that they've got as well. It's kind of made me sit back and take more stock of my own and go, actually, I don't necessarily need to go down a route of formal diagnosis, because what's it going to give me? It's not something which I kind of accepted. So I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. And the ADHD is very me. I very much fire off. It drives my wife absolutely crazy. I'm very much literally, I want everything done yesterday, and it could be the most complicated thing in the world, and I'll go, right, I want it done yesterday. And I would just go off on one, and she'll ask me to do something, and it will be completely off random. 1 minute I'll just get up and I'll go, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to redo a shed, and she's like, what? What on earth are you doing? And then it's like done. It's like, right, that's it. That happens a lot. But I think this sport allows me to consume that as well. By doing the motorsport, it allows me to go as deep as I want to into things. So whether it be the technical side, the tyre side, the rumour side, the news side, it allows me to dip into it when I want to, and go have a look at it and understand stuff and dive into stuff. So I think it also helps me focus on things and keep that kind of mindset to keeping it channeled in a way where it's very coffee corner related, and it's helped me to de-stress in my home life by channeling it that way. But last year, for example, I built my website from scratch, no website experience, ripped it up because I hated it. I literally just went, one day I'm going to build a website, and I had zero idea how to build a website. I had one of those GoDaddy drop and plug in ones, and I hated it. And I was like, no, don't want that. I'm just going to build a website, like it was the easiest thing in the world. And 5 weeks later, burning the candle, it's up and running, and I absolutely love it. But at that point, it was the most outrageous, stupidest thing I could have done, where I just went mid-season, I'll just build a website.
I did the exact same thing. You're not alone. And I don't know about you, but I can't really get into small menial tasks. I have to
Yeah,
kind of have a big project that of course then contains little tasks within it.
yeah.
But I had my house, you want to see my house, and I have to take on massive projects in the house. And
Yeah,
and that's the same with motorsport. You either what was it, go big or go home.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, no, exactly.
Exactly. Right. So that said, let's go back a few weeks. You attended the Monaco Grand Prix, and
I
it is
did.
my favorite race on the calendar. So tell us all about your weekend.
Do you know what? It's really crazy. So once a year, I try to do stuff with Dad. We're very much about making memories. And my wife Jo has no interest in motorsport whatsoever, like zero. She tolerates me talking to her in the car, but it's very much a no interest whatsoever. Whereas my dad is like the biggest motorsport fan going, so he's always been my plus one to everything I go to, and he loves it because we grew up on a council estate. We didn't get opportunities. He never even got to a race until we went to Silverstone sort of 4 years ago now. So for me to be able to give him back and make those memories at the same time, I'm lucky that he's still with us, and I know that's not the same for everybody. So we kind of cherish those moments as well. Our daughter was really ill. We almost lost her to the point where we were told to prepare that she was going to go, and that changed our outlook on work and everything. That was one of the big triggers into giving up work, make sure we're there for the children. Because at that point, when you've got a doctor telling you at that point to say you need to bring family here because we don't think she's going to make the night, and then she spent a month in intensive care after that, all the way up in Stoke where we commuted like 2.5 hours each day. It changes your outlook on life. There are some things which are really life changing, and that for us was the biggest one. So every year we try to make a memory. So we last couple of years ago in Vegas. My dad's always wanted to go to Monaco. We always do Silverstone, and instead of booking tickets this year, I was like, Joe, what, shall I try and get us to Monaco? So we did, and we had a great time. So it was nice to go as a fan. I love going when you're just a fan. You can experience it when there's no PR involved in it. There's no cameras. Everything you're doing is just for you and your memories. It just feels so much better to experience things when you're just there and you can record what you want to record, but not worrying about deadlines, not worrying about I've got to produce a piece of content for somebody because they've kindly invited me into that side of things. It's a whole different layer, I think. So it's nice to go back as a fan. I mean, we spent Friday in Lavascas with hospitality there, which was amazing to see the cars up close there. And we did Saturday, Sunday in the K Grandstand, so right down the marina, opposite the marina. Amazing seats. Weather was absolutely gorgeous, which obviously helps in Monaco when you've got no roof on your grandstand. When you book it, you kind of go, if that rains, I'm in trouble. But yeah, we just experiencing it for the first time was just like amazing. I always feel the different atmosphere when you're at the track. I feel out of touch because you don't get the information, you don't get timing screens, you don't get all the stuff in it. But then there's a different experience to being there, hearing, seeing, mixing with people, talk about what you see, making those memories, and just seeing the cars on track is always a buzz. No matter what the complaints are about these year's regulations stuff, they're still good to see on the track.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my recommendations for Monaco because I did a similar thing to you. I was at Casino Square on one of the days. Then I was at the final chicane at the swimming pool section, so just on the other side of where you were sitting. And it's the grandstand that's backwards on the
Yeah,
track. So you see the cars come through, and then you're looking at the back of them, and then you're right next to the pit lane, which is fantastic. You can see all of the pit lane coming towards you. And then on race day, I was on in the harbour itself. I was near the hospitality, in just, well, it was actually on the harbour. I had my feet
Yeah.
dangling over the edge and then looking at a screen. So even though that was a great experience, you couldn't actually see any of the track at all. Whereas on
Yeah.
Casino Square and the swimming pool section, of course, we could see the cars very, very close and quite nicely because they slow down on both those sections. So it's really
Yeah.
great for photographs. It's great for seeing the race. They're not kind of zooming and they've gone. But it was a different experience. But I think ideally you still want to be able to see the track because otherwise you're
Yeah.
just watching it on the telly. Um, but yeah, I mean that's definitely a huge recommendation to go to Monaco. And if you're one of the naysayers and don't feel like it should be on the calendar, I feel that Monaco isn't just about the race itself. It is that entire week. Normally, the build up to a race, it's still all about race day.
Yeah.
Whereas at Monaco, to me, it's about the build up, to be fair. It's
Yeah.
about those few days beforehand. It's about walking amongst all those buildings and all those yachts and that harbour. And call it what you want, opulent, or it's my guest Reese last time she said it's like a gala event, and she's absolutely
Yeah.
right. And I still feel that we've got so many different circuits on the calendar now. They're not all the same anymore. They're not just all the old school tracks that are very similar. We've got Vegas, which is this now fabulous night
Oh,
race,
yeah.
and that strip is just absolutely
Oh, so else,
awesome.
isn't it?
It's just fabulous. I don't know if I've got a bit of a curse though, because when I went to Vegas, I was just about crossing the track on one of the bridges, and that's when Carlos hit that manhole. He stuck the manhole cover up.
Yeah.
And then when I was at the swimming pool section in Monaco, that's when he smashed into the wall and smashed all his car up. And he was, "Oh, sorry, Carlos, if I'm coming to the
Yeah.
British Grand Prix and I'm really sorry now
I was about to
beforehand."
say, which one does he need to avoid next?
Yeah. So you might as well just not even bother turning up.
Yeah. Yeah. Put a stub in, appendix again or something.
So how did you know? I know that you're ambulant, obviously your conditions are not physical as far as I'm
Yeah.
aware, but how did you sort of find the accessibility to the track, the transportation? Where did you stay? How long did it take you to
And
get to the track?
we were quite lucky. So we stayed at Menton, which is north rather than south. So we didn't go the traditional east way. We know people have been before and they recommended that. So we went north, which is a lot quieter, a lot easier. So it was £7-8 return on the train each day, and it's a 15-minute train journey. So it was nice and easy. What I would say though is we've got children and they've got the wheelchairs and stuff like that. You'd really struggle around Monaco with that because of the elevation there and the narrow streets and all the steps. And I think for someone like me who's able, fine. But when I think with my head on of taking the children, like Jensen with his specialist wheelchair, wouldn't get around there because everything's so crammed. It's so narrow, lots of steps, not much in terms of accessibility into a lot of places. So I do feel it's got a lot missing from that point of view. It's very old school, as you know, from it's all confined to the streets, everything. But you think about even getting into the grandstands, I didn't see any lift access or anywhere you could go for that. I didn't really see anywhere marked that there was any accessibility. So looking around, I didn't see anywhere where you could say that's like a disabled area and go to like at Silverstone. We know they've got the ramps up and they've got the actual grandstands, haven't they, where you can put a wheelchair with a companion, that sort of things. I didn't see anything like that anywhere in Monaco. Now, whether or not it's just because at that point I'm with Dad, so I'm not thinking about it. But normally I would notice those. I'm normally quite good at seeing those and go, oh, that's quite a good idea, or that's quite a good idea. But I think Monaco, you'd really struggle. Even down to the train station, everything's like escalators and steps, and go, coming out of the track. Flights of stairs going up to the train station, for example, didn't see a lift anywhere. So I think you would definitely struggle from that point of view. So I think for me, it was fine. We had enough time to prepare. It's more about the prep back at home. The work that Joe has to do when I'm away. So we have to get help in. We have to get all that organised. So I try to limit how much we're away. So we flew on a Wednesday, came back on a Monday. So we try and limit actually how much we're away for. And so for me, it's about making sure everything's fine here for her. And then that takes a lot of pressure off when I'm away, knowing that she's got help with what she needs here as well. So it's not as simple as just pack a bag and go. There's a whole operation that goes in behind every time we even think about going to an event or anything like that, there's like an army in the background that makes sure we can get there, which is great, but is obviously never seen and never talked about. Which a lot of people don't realise happens. They think you just pick up your bag, pick up your suitcase, off you go to the airport. But in fact, far from it. It's like literally an operation.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I find a lot of the circuits to be quite a challenge to get
Mm,
to and get away from, no matter where it is. There's always an element of walking, no matter, even when I went to Bahrain, and I was staying at the Sofitel, which is not that far from the track, and you couldn't get transportation to it after the race
yeah,
because buses weren't leaving for the police were letting people on foot leave, so they were holding all the transport back. The police weren't letting any vehicles through, any buses through, so I ended up walking halfway back to the hotel, just up this quite vast, wide, it's not quite a motorway, but it's still highway-ish. They still drive
yeah,
really fast on it. And eventually I was just like thumbing a lift and some guy gave me a lift, back to the hotel. I just jumped in some strange guy's car because, I've got, I am ambulant, but I do have walking difficulties. I have a
yeah.
spinal injury, as people know that have watched this before, and as you know as well. So for me, it's very, very challenging physically to be at the tracks, especially with all the walking across those weekends, especially if you do want to even go on track walks, hospitality, Bahrain, for example, you've got to go down a bunch of steps to get under the circuit at the end of the sort of paddock where everything's going on, where the stage is, where the
Yeah,
accessible toilets are, where the food
yeah,
is, and then all these steps down to a tunnel and all these steps up the other side. Then you pop up and then you're there at the F1 paddock. You can access the F2 paddock. There is a ramp right down the other end, but then there's nothing much going on down the other end. So you still got an element of transporting to the ramp if you want to go, that way. So tracks, even though some of them feel accessible, they're still not that accessible. And the one thing that I'm quite interested in, I don't know if I should ask the question or not really when I get there, because I don't want to get in trouble. But the brand new motorhome that's just been built for Cadillac, and I can't form an opinion yet because I've not seen all four sides of this
yeah.
motorhome, but they appear to have steps up for their entrance.
I saw
Uh,
the floating staircase and stuff, isn't it? As well,
oh,
it's like
inside. Yeah,
yeah.
that looks awesome. And so I'm
I
hoping
mean,
there's a lift inside.
yeah, but that's the thing, is it? Yeah, how many people have actually thought of that? And I think back to the tracks we've been to, Vegas, Barcelona. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking a wheelchair. I wouldn't. I mean, Jensen wouldn't cope with it because of the noise and stuff anyway. But I don't actually think a lot of tracks I would actually get him around a lot of things. That's what puts me off anyway. Even if there's an event where I know I could get him to potentially at a push, because I haven't got that sharp route out, parking even. Yeah,
Oh,
you
you
think about
wouldn't drive
even
in Vegas.
yeah,
No way.
yeah. And that's what I mean. You've got Vegas and all the other bits, and how Barcelona was all buses into there. How would you do it? You just wouldn't, and you're then relying on your own transport in and out of the track, which complicates matters anyway. And then even like Silverstone last year we were at. My daughter had an accident on the Friday, so I had to leave to go to hospital. But even getting out the track was a challenge. And literally, a policeman ended up guiding me out because I couldn't get out because it was 11:30. Everyone's coming in. I was trying to get out, couldn't even get out. And in the end, there was a policeman there who wound down his window and wondered why I was going the opposite way. And when I explained to him, he was like, "Follow me, and I'll take you out a back way." But
Oh,
and which was absolutely great of him. But otherwise, I would have been stuck in the same traffic coming in as trying to get out. And just little things like that. Just I don't think Formula One's done enough at all yet. I don't think they've got the right people in the right place to advise all the tracks, I should say, as well, because it's a combination of both, isn't it? Yeah, at the end of the day, Formula One are the main company, but at the end of the day, the tracks do the hosting, they got responsibility. But I'm not seeing enough yet around what they're doing for Grand Prix events. I look at American football, for example, sensory rooms and all of the other bits going on, accessible areas, all of those bits they've got. Yeah, you go around. We went around the Raiders Stadium whilst we were in Vegas, and sensory cabins everywhere. All accessible. Everything's got a lift. Doing the tour, they're like lift there if you can't take the steps. Do that. Completely catering for anybody who can't access it. And I think that Formula One I appreciate the tracks have challenges, but I don't think they're anywhere near doing enough with what they've got with it, to be honest, at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the older school tracks, obviously they are older school and they were
Yeah,
built and in a time when disabilities weren't considered. But there are some pretty new circuits on this calendar, and I do genuinely feel like not enough, as you just said, is has been done, especially at the newer circuits and the newer tracks. I mean, Vegas actually wasn't too bad, to be fair. The only challenge was the late hours. And I know
yeah,
they've forwarded it a couple of hours now,
yeah,
but I was there the first year in 23 and it was 10 p.m. and for the race, and the sessions were so late, and you were having to sort of force yourself to sleep in just so you could then make it to the end, especially that first night with that grid that had
yeah.
popped up, because it took hours and hours and hours to get that sorted, and everyone was just sort of hanging around the strip. And yeah, I got to know some people, and chatted and sort of whiled the time away. But if something like that happens, there weren't any restrooms at all. And if you've been to Vegas, you know how big these hotel complexes are,
Oh,
these resorts are. They're
they're mini cities, aren't
huge.
they? Yeah.
They're
I mean,
huge. Even one hotel, it can
yeah.
take you 30 minutes to walk around through one
Yeah.
hotel.
I remember because we did Vegas a year after, so the second year, and we would have said, you go through a hotel thinking, I'll just pop through this hotel. Because when you look at the strip, you go, oh, there's like the wind there. I'll just walk through there. And you walk in, and it's a shopping mall, a restaurant, a casino. You're like, where's the end to this? And my dad was like in shock. He was like, every hotel is a mini city. He said, it's the best way to describe it. Where I live is like, my high street is like this one hotel. That's it. He said we've got like 10 of them. We walk about the first night going, hold on a sec. We've just walked through 5 hotels in about 8 miles. I mean, yeah, Monaco. We did 8 miles a day in Monaco because obviously the watch clock. So 8 miles a day we were walking on average around Monaco, and yeah, that's with seats and that. Like, we were just wandering around getting food in between. But literally 8 miles we covered, and per day. So it goes to show you that even when you're not intending to do it, how much walking involved. And we all know at Silverstone's like, getting to the media centre, getting around the track, getting to all the other bits. You can walk around Silverstone quite easy and rack up the miles very, very quickly, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, while you were at Monaco, did you see anything of that McLaren special, with the ex-drivers?
Yeah, I saw Heikki Kovalainen as he came out of the paddock. So we managed to get down right by the harbour on media day. I'm not quite sure how we ended up there. We kind of just took a couple of turnings and ended up in front of the paddock gates. And we are kind of like, I'm not sure we're supposed to be here, but you know what? We can't go any further now. We're just stand here. So we saw Lando, who was doing a great interview with Natalie Pinkman. We saw Zach Brown was there as well. Very much a flying visit out. It looked like he was being kidnapped as he was coming out rather than being mobbed. It was quite funny. Reminded me of the films, where someone drove up with the car, opened the door, and kind of pushed him in as he ran through the paddock gate, clearly late. But yeah, so we saw a couple. We saw quite a few. The Cadillac team was there as well because they were right by the gates, obviously, as well. So yeah, it was really good to just see it, catch a quick selfie and say hello to them as they were walking out.
Right, well, we both know that this is going to be a bit of an epic podcast because we do have two races to talk about. But I do want to sort of very briefly cover Monaco a little tiny bit, and then we can move on to Barcelona. So, just your reaction really on Max's start, or as soon as the lights went out, what were your thoughts?
Just gutted because it kind of spoiled the race. I think Max had the potential to put Kimi under pressure going into turn one. I feel that when the second place person always kind of struggles to go off the line, it gives that pole position person that bit of breathing room they need. Don't get me wrong, Kimi drove brilliantly all weekend. I think he did really well. But for me, by having that stall on the grid, it kind of stopped Max being a challenger in it, didn't it, really? And we all know that Monaco's about once you get position, that's it, really. And I think with a one stop, it was always going to be that, unless you get an early safety car, which kind of throws into the mix. If you don't get that, you kind of saw what we saw in there. So for me, I thought qualifying was probably the highlight of the weekend. See those cars, they were on the limit Saturday. When we were watching those final runs in Q3, down by the harbour, you could see literally touching the walls flat out. For me, that was the most exciting part of the weekend because they were on the limit then. And my dad's got to saying that when you watch Q3, that's the fastest you'll see a Formula One car go because ultimately they've got no fuel, brand new soft tyres. Yeah, and their goal is to get to the finish line as fast as they can. And he loves qualifying, and that always sticks with that sort of sentence where he's like, "That is the fastest those cars will ever go in terms of on that track that weekend, that particular moment, because that's what the whole aim is." So, for me, seeing that was probably more of a thing. But I think it took it away from it. I think that the tactics you can't really do a lot. The two stop didn't work last year. The one they brought in this year didn't really work. So it was a great performance from Kimi. Max was unlucky, but I think that there was no one really put pressure under him. We saw that Isaac had problems with the engine, was able to hold off that side of things, and that's probably the downside of Monaco, isn't it? That you can't capitalise on it if you haven't got that start. And then we also had the restart, didn't we, with Lewis right by him, which you kind of then went, oh. And I think if we saw the Ferraris of beginning of the season, Bahrain pre-season testing, and obviously when the season kicked off in Australia, I think we would have had a better race on hand because the Ferrari starts back then was so much better compared to now when they've been honed in, teams have got better, Ferrari have got that advantage cut. Again, it kind of felt like it was something, if Lewis had got ahead again, I would never have been able to see Kimi getting past him anywhere. So it's one of those, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I mean, Kimi actually had a great start for a change,
Yeah.
but by lap 3, it was 35 seconds clear, and
Yeah.
which is highly unusual for
And
Monaco.
he lapped up to third place as well. And if the safety car hadn't come, you've got to wonder if he would have caught the rest of the podium places as well, because the safety car obviously pinned them all back. So at one point, I think when the first safety car came out, he was sort of up to up to P3 in terms of lapping, and probably getting closer to P3 to lap him as well. So I think for me, it kind of showed the highlights in the golf of it. But Mercedes haven't always done well around there. It surprised me how well Mercedes did around there, if I'm honest. Because it's not always been a happy hunting ground for them, to be honest. They've struggled over the years, even with the dominant cars that they've had, since 2014. There hasn't been that many amazing sort of victories in Monaco for them. It's tended to lean itself towards the McLarens, the Red Bulls, and some others as well. So I think for me, it just shows you how good that Mercedes is all round. It feels at the moment,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Although, of course, they've had a couple of failures the last 2 races. But, I mean, Kimi, obviously the youngest driver to win at Monaco. He matched Hamilton's 5 consecutive wins, although that stat's now gone because, it's not, he bombed out of the Barcelona race. But they have said that every driver who wins 5 in a row has gone on to win the World Championship that year. So do you think he can be the youngest world champion this year?
I think he can. I think for me, with his age, there's always going to be some inconsistencies which will creep in at some point. And obviously, Barcelona, we're talking about was reliability. But I think for me, there's going to be a dip. We saw it with Oscar as well over the past couple of seasons when he's had the lead as well. So I think it's going to be about who can capitalise when that dip comes, because I don't see. I might be wrong, but I'm not too sure he's going to be able to consistently keep it up all season long. I think there may be an element where there's a dip in form, and it depends then who can get the points and mount a challenge, like we saw Max doing as well last season. So for me, I think definitely he's on the right path. I think he's done a lot of growing up over the past 12 months. I think last season was great for him in terms of how he learned. And then I think now he's putting that into practice. But I love seeing the rookies because they got no fear. I love seeing the fact they take no prisoners whatsoever. They've got no. I don't want to say they got no respect, because they have. They've got no fear. They've got no limits to what they do. They just want to drive fast and they want to win. And you see it with Kimi at times with race pace and managing tyres and stuff like that. You see they don't do it. And for me, it makes for a much better driver, I think, on the edge. It's when they have to learn to manage a car where sometimes it feels like they lose something, or they can potentially lose something by doing that. So I love seeing it go out. So I think for me, he's on the right path, and I don't see anyone stopping the Mercedes drivers at the moment, but I'm not sure George is doing enough to beat Kimi at the moment.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Oh, well, it wasn't a great weekend at Monaco for Charles. It wasn't at Barcelona either. He did hit the barrier in qualifying, and then the loose tarmac ended his race. but he sort of claims it was his brakes. Now, I'm not sure if it was actually a combination of both. That, he's not happy with the brakes. He's changed them for Barcelona, but he wasn't happy with them. Um, First of all, do you think it should have been a complete resurface of that section of the track rather than a very obvious patch up?
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I can gather, the Porsche Super Cup is the one which did it damage. You know, big heavy cars. That seemed to be what sort of did the problem on the Sunday. So I think some of the obviously progressed as the weekend went on. You had F3, F2, Porsche on there as well. So a lot of support series on there. But I think ultimately you're right. The mistake is they tried to do a patch, and what they should have done was take that whole section. Most traditional tracks would have done the whole section, and I think. And also, you worry about Monaco with it being a street circuit. Has it got enough time to cure? Has it got enough time for all those bits in? Or was it a rush job where they're like, we got to get that road back open to the traffic, we've got to get it back open? When it was first done, was it done in a way that actually the tarmac fully went off before cars went over it? Lots of things go on there. But I think for me, it showed probably the dangers still of a street circuit in terms of a more traditional track, because I think more traditional track, you would have taken the time, took the whole top layer off, took the whole section off. How many times do we come in the whole of sector one's been resurfaced, for example? China, springs to mind. We're like, you see the work going on in Madrid currently to how to lay a track, and you think that's never going to happen on the street. Let's be honest about it. You saw layers going into Madrid. I'm like, that ain't happening on the street, is it? It's more like filling the pothole and get the traffic back flowing again.
Yeah, well, we know that Charles actually changed his brakes for this race. Well, we know, but not everybody knows that the Ferraris were originally on a brake called Bembo,
Yeah.
and Lewis in Japan, since Japan, changed his brakes from Bembo. They still have the Bembo calipers, but now they're like a carbon brake, like he had at Mercedes. And people are sort of sensing that that's why he's improved quite a lot. So Charles tried them out this weekend in Barcelona, but I feel that he was actually just trying to get used to them because Lewis had them at Mercedes, so he's sort of used to them, whereas Charles has been on these brakes for years at Ferrari. So I do feel like he was seemed to be testing them out and testing how late he could brake, which then
Yep.
obviously made him come a cropper on the track, and but everyone's allowed to make those mistakes while they're trying to get used to a new part, especially something as important as the brakes. So do you feel like now they can both start doing well as soon as Charles can kind of get used to them?
Yeah, I think Charles is down to do a Pirelli tyre test deliberately with that in mind. I think he's doing one in Barcelona this week actually, to give him a couple of days when Lewis did one earlier on in the season, and I'm pretty sure that they switched the brakes before that as well. So Lewis has been on about this since he joined Ferrari. He doesn't like the brakes, and I think the best way to describe it is when you pick your car up from a service and you hit the brakes and they feel spongy and they feel wrong, and it takes you a while to get used to them again. And yeah, I keep thinking back drivers, they feel the same thing. These cars are just amplified versions of what you get. When you get into a different car, you drive it differently. And a Formula One car is no different. Each one's got its own characteristics. Same as, I drive my wife's car, completely different way of driving my car because it's completely, different style. Mine's a much bigger car. And I think all of this plays into a factor. I think with Charles, once he gets used to it, it'll be fine. I think it's a combination of he's seen what Lewis can do. Lewis is quite a late brake. He likes to brake late and quite hard. Whereas Charles is very much a more smoother driver, always has been. So I think that's a really key difference in their styles as well. So I think once Charles has found a way to adapt it to what he needs it to be, then I think we're going to see what he can get from that Ferrari. Whereas Lewis seems to be absolutely buzzing with confidence now. He's got that. Like you say, he had it at Mercedes. It's something he knows. It's something he's always used. And for him, it's kind of the car's got that bit of the rear end isn't quite as stable. Lewis likes that. He likes to feel the car. He always said about the ground effect cars, he couldn't feel the car in the corner. So these new regulations are certainly sort of helping him in that sense of getting a feel for the car.
So the penalties, Terry, we had the pit lane speeding penalties, which is still ongoing even after Barcelona. And we had Hamilton, Russell, Colapinto, Gasly, and Piastri speeding in the pit lane. And the FIA has said they'd measured the distance between two lines and none of the cars were speeding because it was accurate. Yet since then, we've had Alpine appeal that. They had their own people in that pit lane apparently doing measurements, and those measurements were in fact incorrect. And the FIA have admitted this, as far as we're all aware, the news that came out over the weekend. And Alpine appealed, and Gasly had those penalties overturned. Now, first of all, and McLaren now have lodged an appeal. I think they've done it today. So I'm
Yeah.
not aware of any other teams at the moment, specifically Ferrari for Hamilton and Mercedes for Russell. Have they appealed as well? Do we know?
So Mercedes have said that they've got intention. Now, it's quite ironic what they're doing. So they can't overturn the penalty, you know that. So they're now trying to overturn Gasly's penalty is what's happening. So you can't appeal your own penalty because the way the FIA have done the wording of their rules is designed to not allow a race to drag on. That's the whole point behind it. So the idea behind the FIA regulations are you've got a very short window to say, I'm going to appeal, and then it shuts it off and you move on to the next race, which makes perfect sense. What we've got now is we've got a very clunky rule in place. So Alpine obviously felt that something was wrong. Now, the teams knew something was up all weekend. They were all talking about something being up, but they didn't know what it was, which in Formula One terms is really bad, because if you've got multiple people saying something's wrong, the data will tell you that, and that's what they're saying. They're saying the data all weekend was telling them that something was wrong, but they couldn't put their finger on it. Now, a lot of teams adjusted their cars accordingly. So what they said was, we're not quite sure. So what we're going to do, we're going to drop our speed limiter down to 59 rather than 60, and we're going to play safe because something is going on with the pit lane. Once you start getting 1, 2, 3 penalties, common sense tells you that something's wrong. Now, what's happened is the Gasly ones opened a real can of worms because Formula One management supply the FIA with the timing from Takura, and what they've said is there's a 77 centimetre discrepancy in the pit lane in Monaco. So basically, it was 77 centimetres too short. Now, halfway through the race, the stewards notified race control and said something's not right here because we're getting too many speeding, basically. So the stewards were actually the first ones to flag it themselves to say, hold on a sec, this is like number 3, number 4. This is really unusual. What's going on here? To be told everything's fine. Alpine obviously opened the can of worms by doing the physical measurement, which is obviously their right to do so. The problem you've now got is you've now got one team that's benefited from it, but it's affected all of the other teams. And this is where the big problem is. So Alpine did what was perfectly entitled to. They didn't serve the penalty. They put in a review. That review's been upheld. But what it's now since done is normally when you have a penalty, it's 1 or 2 car related. You can go, it's 1 or 2 things. This is widespread. Every single driver was affected by what happened in the pit lane by either lowering your speed or by speed and serving the penalty. And in Monaco, it's even more important because you're talking about potentially losing places. Yeah, we saw what happened with George. He ended up all the way out.
Worst off out of all of them, really.
Yeah. But the FIA are now saying that you can't rescind the penalty that's been served. So what Mercedes is now saying, well, hold on a sec then. So why don't we just not serve the penalties anymore then? Yeah, when we have a race, why don't we just go, if I've got a 5-second time penalty that I'm not sure of, actually, I'm going to not serve it, wait to the end of the race, and then appeal it. So if I've got a 50-50 call, I'm going to go, do you know what? I ain't going to serve your time penalty anymore. I'm going to sit on my hands, wait to the end of the race, and then put in an appeal. And that's the precedent that it's setting. That's what Toto's talked about over the weekend. He said that it's setting a really dangerous precedent for the actual governance of this and how far do you take it and close it down. But when you have a penalty, so you get 96 hours from a race finishing to appeal a decision. That's the rule. So that's what Alpine did. They gave their notice. They said, we're going to appeal, got their evidence, and then off they went. So you don't have to have your evidence when you appeal. You basically just got to tell the FIA that I intend to do it. So that's what Alpine did. They said, we don't agree. Gasly's pit lane telemetry says he didn't speed, so we're going to appeal it. And then they kind of worked backwards into finding what the problem was and since found it. The problem the other teams have got is they've served the penalty and it's been and gone and it's affected them. So what they're now saying is when the FIA made the decision on Gasly, the irony is it got published in Barcelona, which was obviously Friday. Now you get to appeal it 96 hours from when the FIA make their decision. So because that document wasn't done until Friday, that opened up a 96-hour window for the teams to argue against Gasly's decision. So what McLaren have now done, they can't get Oscar's penalty appealed, but what they can do, they can appeal the FIA's decision to overturn Gasly. So that's essentially what they've done. So they're kind of working backwards to say, well, you've admitted it's a big fault, so why is one team benefiting from it? And I think this is a problem you got with this. It's so widespread. I kind of get Alpine's right, and they did that, and that's within the rules. But then you also got to wonder what this does for the governance when it's not a steward issue, it's not really a team issue. It's just one of those things that's happened that's unfortunately a problem by Formula One management, who ironically seem to be getting away with this scot-free, that no one's actually picked up as them. Poor FIA can only go on what they've got on their screens, and yeah, they've been given the wrong information. But I think for me, it sets a real dangerous precedent, because you could have race weekends. They can't go on forever. They can only go on for 96 hours potentially. But you're going to see drivers who you think about having times of, a corner incident being talked about, leaving the track and gaining an advantage, or, apex in the corner and who had the apex. Potentially now you've got a situation where if this gets overturned and says, the teams are just going to go, I think that's Lewis's corner or George's corner or Max's corner. Joe, I'm not going to serve the penalty anymore. I'll just wait and we'll appeal it. And then suddenly your classification can't be shut. So it's a really dangerous game, I think, that the FIA are playing with this, and in terms of what it could do. And Toto talked about having a seat at the table. So what he's talking about is if they give a notice to appeal, they get invited as guests to an appeal. So a bit like not the jury, the audience in the court. So a bit like court spectators. So they get to present some evidence, but they're more, we want to be in the room because we want to hear what's going on. And I think that's what Red Bull and Mercedes seem to have done. They seem to have put in their piece of paper that says we want to be in the room, but we're not going to be the ones to actually do it. Whereas McLaren are the ones who've gone, actually, we don't mind. And to be honest, they probably, rock, paper, scissors, which one of them does it, because they've all got the same argument. So I think it's a case of one team's appealed, so it doesn't look so bad, and the other two are sitting in on it to see what's going on. But it's something that the whole of the paddock is keeping an eye on, because it's got the potential to have massive repercussions, not just in terms of Gasly's podium, but also, like I say, how penalties are served in Formula One and the whole governance of the sport, really. So it's a really big case.
I think, though, there's a couple of big repercussions here, because you've got to make an appeal, it can be up to €20,000 in cost.
Yeah.
So you've got that issue, and there are some smaller teams that, say somebody like Haas, that possibly wouldn't appeal based on that number. Some of the teams with a lesser budget. So that's an issue in itself. But what I feel like I have an issue with is because they know that it was a genuine fault, and of no fault of any team, no fault of any driver, there should be a clause. And why have they not just overturned everybody's penalties at the same time? So why have they forced teams to appeal and take that money? Well, one team at the moment, but now Mercedes, they're still paying for this, for the second part of this. They're charging them money for something that they know is genuinely their fault. So to me, that's absolutely not fair. And then to be able to overturn Gasly's reinstate Gasly, to then not reinstate the other drivers when it is not any fault of theirs, that I have an issue with that.
Yeah, the money side of it is a funny one. They changed the rules last year, so like Alpine got their money back. So if you win your appeal, you get it back, but if you lose it, you don't, which is a big one. So you would say McLaren potentially are probably more at risk. I think it comes out the cost cap as well. That's a bit people don't realise. So, sporting penalty appeals are deliberately done to come out your cost cap. They're designed to discourage you putting lots in. It's a system that I remember when it was introduced, a lot of people would talk about at the time and say it felt like it was being done to not challenge the stewards. It was a deliberate, like you say, deliberate purpose to put a real financial burden on the team so that they don't do it. Whereas potentially now we're saying, well, actually, teams are, and like say, if you're Mercedes or something, how many points did Gasly make by getting that podium back? That's paid for itself, and they won, so they got the money back. So actually, it's kind of a no risk on some of the bigger teams who could afford to do it. The smaller teams weren't. I think you've either got to go down the route of everyone served the penalty, so you add Gasly's on and just go it's a mistake, or you overturn them all. But I think the bigger thing for that is like George, where do you draw the line? Because his second penalty come from the first penalty,
yeah,
and you go, well, hold on a sec. And then I think it was like I want to say it was Red Bull talk about it. I think like Mekki mentioned that by dropping their speed down to 59, they lost zero point 0.2 on the pit lane. So they said actually they made a very conscious decision to lose speed to make sure they didn't get a 5 second penalty. So even though they didn't get done for speeding, they were
Yes.
compromised by
Yeah.
knowing there was a problem. And I
Cool.
think that, and I don't think there's a single car in that race that didn't compromise or got a
Mhm.
penalty because they either lifted and coasted so that they didn't get a penalty because they were told to. I mean,
Yeah.
if you listen to Bono talking to Kimi, I don't know if you've seen his pit stop. It's really eye-opening in terms of him coaching through it. So as he's approached, he's telling him, don't cut the corner towards the end.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I
Make
heard
sure
it.
you lift.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
make sure you lift. So again, every driver would have had that. So they've all been compromised by it. So is it one of those where Formula One kind of have to hold their hands up and go, we made a mistake,
Mm.
and Gazzy gets the penalty put back on there, and they just go, it's one of those things. Yeah, we double check it, make sure it doesn't happen again, which I'm sure they will do. And they just go, actually, it's one of those. And again, it's probably disadvantages like we talked about of a street circuit compared to a track. A
Yeah.
track would have that line defined, would be in there. We know there was movement with Cadillac being put into there, and that's caused what the problem is. So
Mhm.
apparently Cadillac coming in with their motorhome has moved some of the pit lane around. So it's one of those things where you kind of go, I remember, you talk about Carlos Sainz with his, he ended up taking a penalty because they had to redo his car in that. And at the time, people said that weren't fair, but he did it. So it's not the same with Gasly. Technically, should he not just have been hit with a penalty because everyone else was? And it's kind of like turf. So yeah, I don't know where this one's going to go. If I'm honest, I
No.
don't know. I don't feel there's a winner in this one. If I'm
No,
honest,
I
I don't.
think I agree. I think the
Yeah,
biggest loser in this is Monaco itself, is the track
yeah,
itself, the reputation, because it already has a lot of negativity around it at this time of year. There are a lot of fans that don't think it should be on the calendar, and that this is just adding fuel to that fire for me. But again, I'll reiterate that I feel it's a must on the calendar, and anybody
yeah.
that doesn't like it, if you can ever get there one day, please go, because you will soon change your tune. Now we must move on to Barcelona. Oh my goodness me. So Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton, a
Ah,
goat, as some people describe him, won his first Grand Prix for 686 days since Spa 2024. Terry, did you enjoy it?
but I enjoyed what I liked about it was that Ferrari did something different. Um, and isn't it funny that we're talking about a Ferrari masterclass in strategy when we've all seen the clown pit wall memes that have gone around through their plan B, plan C checking, and ironically, plan C, gave them the win here because the virtual safety car confirmed Lewis's win, but he was on course to win before that. The strategy was spot on with Ferrari. That the safety car just meant he could get in and out fine anyway. Worst case scenario, he would have been just behind George on much fresher tyres, and he would have still got him. So, for me, the talk of that, I did an article on this week where I literally pulled the telemetry, and Lewis was catching literally a couple of seconds per lap. He had the raw pace, and he still had another set of tyres to come. So there was no way that Mercedes were going to hold him off. I think for me, it was great to see something different. It was great to see Lewis on top of the podium. I think the sport needed it. Ironically, Lewis winning in Barcelona probably has done more than anything for the set of regulations could ever do. Tenfold, because it's just a real feel-good factor. I don't think there's a lot of people who didn't want to see Lewis. Even some of the people who maybe haven't been as nice towards Lewis can't say they didn't enjoy watching Lewis take it to Ferrari, take it to McLaren in a Ferrari with a different strategy to everybody else. I remember doing the strategy beforehand, before the race, and the free stop didn't look likely at all. All the top six had the same tyre allocation. It didn't look like it was worth going for, but my word, they pulled out the bag, didn't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it was Lewis from the old days. We saw during his reign and the height of his success that he would sometimes do a bit of an alternative strategy, and sometimes he would leave it very late for his last pit stop and put on a pair of softs. And we've seen one race where he just steamed past everybody in those last few laps and went on to win races. And that to me was classic Lewis Hamilton, regardless of car, tires, new regs, new this, new that, doesn't matter. To me, he was back in that car on Sunday. And it was also great for Barcelona because Barcelona is actually one of my less liked races on the calendar. I've felt it to be a little bit boring for a number of years, and apologies to those who love Barcelona. But it absolutely just made a massive difference this year for me. But I think I wrote something. I write notes while I'm watching the race, and I'm not sure I can actually quite find where I've wrote it. But after that last, after his first pit stop, and he came in and he put his hard tires on, and and I noticed I put something like Hamilton is steaming along. He's going really fast with a question mark to just, keep my eye on what was going on there. And, obviously, luck or not, safety car or VSC or not safety car, my goodness, I was again, but VSC. The cards fell in the exact right place for me, as it has done for other drivers in the past. Other drivers have lucked out, and that's how they've come through and won races. But to me, that was just an absolute masterclass from him. And you were right; it sort of forced the hand, really, certainly of Mercedes. By pitting early, and ended up with George and Kimi scrapping again, which we were loving those scraps. We think they're great, but I don't know if part of that scrap was the reason why Kimi ended up retiring. But it was a case of, well, it was keeping George a bit busy for a while, so it allowed Lewis to get even further away from them.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to me in that. I mean, I think Mercedes shot themselves in the foot. I think they should, when Lewis came in early, they covered him off, but I think they should have covered him with one driver. I think that's the problem. They played into Ferrari's hands a bit. They covered him off with both George, and then suddenly, they went, oh, hold on, we had to do McLaren, equal rules, and we're not going to offset the strategy. Whereas Mercedes in the past, I think back to Belgium a few years ago, where George went to a one stop and that sort of things. In the past, they've allowed the driver to kind of do something a bit different, and it felt here they didn't want to do that because they didn't want to upset the apple cart, and they kind of played into it by committing to two stops. But then they didn't react to Lewis's second stop. He came in on the second stop, and at that point, he's free stopping. You look at it and you go, he's clearly free stopping because he's right where he is. And then Mercedes, instead of reacting, went long. And you're like, but hold on a sec, how's that going to work? Because he came back out in P7. He's clearly going to catch you. And at that point, when he pitted that second time, that's when they should have brought one of the two Mercedes in, because that would have put Ferrari back under pressure as well. Yep. Because suddenly, they could have potentially put a Kimi in front of him, for example, on the same strategy, or right behind him, pushing him, like you say. And
it would have split them two up, and they wouldn't have scrapped as much either.
Yeah. And they would have saved that, because I think Toto said 6 seconds he estimated they lost scrapping. Now, I don't think it would have been enough. I still think Lewis would have caught and passed and all of the other bits. But even so, like you say, they were too busy looking at each other. If Kimi or George had been concentrating on Lewis back then, that would have allowed one of the two Mercedes to go off and do something different. And they made it easy, but then Ferrari got to be applauded for doing something different, to be honest. So I think, as soon as I saw the soft tires, I thought, what's going on here? But that was a sign of the track as well. The mediums were going the same way as the soft tyres. They were holding on because the track was so warm. And again, Pirelli was telling us all this. If you read the reports on Saturday, they were literally saying our mediums are wearing the same as the soft. So clearly Ferrari were the only ones paying attention in class and went, actually, I can get a better start off the line, I can get my tyres warmer, and they're going to last just as long. And if I free stop, it don't matter anyway, because I'm either going to get an early safety car, which is most likely at the start in a race, or I can pit early and everyone's either going to cover me off or I've got the pace to come through. So, it was a complete masterclass. But how great is it that Ferrari seemed to be gelling with Lewis and listening to Lewis as well?
Yes.
Compared to when he first went. It seems to be that relationship. We know that his old race engineer, he clearly struggled with in the first season there. Santi's done a great job at coaching him, talking to him, and it seems very positive. Fred Vasseur's done a good job there. So I think actually it's a combination of Lewis learning the team obviously understanding Lewis and how he works as well. And I think we're now seeing the sort of the relationship coming to fruition a bit now, where he's got his feet under the table, got a car, as we said earlier, he's enjoying driving, he's enjoying the regulations, and now he's showing what he can do. And suddenly the team is seeing what he can do and go, actually, we haven't signed somebody who's at the end of his career who's just here for a paycheck. We signed someone who clearly wants to win and can win. So I think it's great news for the sport and great news for Lewis as well.
Yeah, and it was wonderful, those podium celebrations. And obviously, as a biased Brit, to see an all British podium since 1968, Jackie Stewart, um, Graham Hill, and John Surtees, which is quite a long time ago and way before our time, Terry. No matter
Absolutely,
how much
absolutely.
we say we're old, we're not part of that
Yeah,
old school people. Now, there was
didn't see
a
that one.
really bizarre incident with Hulkenberg and Lawson, and gravel flew up in the air as Lawson came off the track a little bit, and it hit the extinguisher, and then the ERS kill switch kicked in, and Hulkenberg did get back into the pits. But they couldn't get the car restarted, and this was around lap 30. So, what about that for a fluke and a bit of bad luck for the Hulk?
It's one of those you couldn't make it up, could you? I mean, when I read about it, I was like, so you're telling me a bit of gravel hit the kill switch? I mean, of all the places they hit, these cars are notorious, aren't they? When something goes wrong, they're designed to protect the engine, aren't they? And yeah, the engine's a very expensive part of these Formula One cars, and we know that we've heard this so many times in the past. As soon as something goes wrong, it shuts down, protects the engine, limp moves, back to the pits, and that's clearly what's happened in this case. And they're not designed to be quickly started again. They're designed to be looked at to find out what caused that to make sure that it don't happen. So you can't control or delete these cars and get them going again. Unfortunately, it's a full blown take it to bits to redo it. But I mean, it reminds me of when we see tear offs go into vents, isn't it, and get overheating from that. Again, some innocuous that happens that you can never write about, you can never plan for. They have to be on there for safety reasons.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to have a kill switch for a steward, and and a marshal taking them away. And lo and behold, it's been Hulkenberg's undoing this time.
And another bizarre thing that happened with Albon, and his camera on the roll bar had a broke, and had this massive incident, and he pitted, and it to me, on when I was looking down the timings, looked like he'd retired. He was in the pit,
Yeah.
he'd retired, and then I noticed him uh come back on. I was noticing him light up green again, and I was like, what's going on? 10 laps down, and he comes trundling back out. And then we learned later on that they'd fix this situation, this camera. There's nothing wrong with the car, nothing wrong with the engine, so they sent him back out again. He's got a car full of advertising, and yeah, okay, why not, and get some practice laps in. So he comes back out, but he was that far behind that Behrman retired right towards the end of the race in that last few laps. And I haven't found out why he retired yet, but he retired. But Albon still finished behind Behrman because he was that far
We're not
behind.
eight laps down, and whereas Behrman and I think Kimi as well were both classified finishers, and Albon was not classified because he was so far down. Another bizarre FIA ruling where you kind of go, how's that work then?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, you just think, why not just rip the camera off? I mean, I don't understand why take 8 laps. To me, it's not. I get what they're saying. It's obviously whatever sort of media and that sort of thing. But surely you could just take the camera off and send the car back out. I don't understand why they had to wait and do whatever they had to do. It's one of those where you go, actually, the camera's failed. Tape it over, put a bit. In the old days, you would have seen the duct tape come out on that, wouldn't you? You would have seen someone with a bit of black duct tape just going round that Duracell bar, just going around and go, right, off you go.
Yeah, the aeroplane tape's great. I've
Yeah,
literally flown back from the Balearic Islands with some tape over a hole in the wing. You can
absolutely. Or someone would have just torn it off and just thrown it in the back and gone, yeah, the FIA can collect that later.
yeah.
So yeah, there's clearly a rule in there somewhere which we haven't thought about, where they clearly need it working and on there to run around on the track. I imagine it's something to do with data and everything else, but it was another really bizarre situation where I think they, like I say, they clearly wanted to get the practice laps in and get some data on the car. I think they brought some upgrades as well. They certainly have done. So I think that's the reason behind it. Send him out. We don't get a lot of testing nowadays, obviously, especially mid-season. So he kind of turned it into a mini test. It's not the first time Williams has done it either, is it? They've done it quite a few times in the past. So it seems to be a popular thing they do.
Yeah, well, we've
Yeah.
got a couple of other things with Alonso hinting that he might not be at the next Barcelona Grand Prix in 2 years' time because that's quite a long way off, and I'm not sure that he will be as passionate in 2 years' time as he was when he first joined Aston Martin. Of course, he always knew it was a long-term project, but it is obviously taking a little bit longer. So I just think with that one, we just need to watch this space and, maybe. Alonso's got another season in him, but
Yeah,
maybe not into 2028. So, as we say, we'll just watch that space. And then, of course, with Gasly's overturning of all these, results and everything, he's finished in the points in every race this season so far. So his season's actually going really, really well. Now, I'm going to have a really quick look at the standings just after round 6 and 7 in Monaco and Barcelona. Kimi Antonelli stays on 156 points up at the top there. Lewis Hamilton is on 115 points into P2 now. So it's just a 41-point difference at the moment. And George Russell is in third still with 106 points. Mercedes are still leading the Teams Championship with 262. Ferrari are on 190. And Aston Martin did get their first point with the Monaco race, with Alonso finishing in P10 after he inherited it from Perez's post-race penalties for his second race start infringement in Monaco, because he'd already had a first race start infringement after the first race start. So yeah, so Alonso's inherited their first point there. So we're just going to have a quick look ahead at the Austrian Grand Prix as well at the Red Bull Ring. Um, what do you think about Red Bull Ring? I love Austria. I think it's a fabulous
yeah.
circuit. To me, it's very reminiscent of Spa as well. I love both those circuits. So yeah, what are your thoughts? And who do you think might qualify at top, and who do you think might win the race, Terry?
Oh, do you know what? It's going to be track limits is going to be key. Always is, isn't it, in Austria?
Do you
Yeah, we
remember
all
that
remember that
F2
one.
year? Do you remember that
Yeah,
Formula 2 year? It was just
so that was
rolling every single driver, every single.
so I love Austria. Short lap, but fast lap, isn't it? It's one of those ones, the action is going to come on that big. Is it turn? I want to say turn two, where at the hill, and that yeah, where Kimi and Max obviously slided last year, didn't they? So that turn there, always guaranteed. Not a sprint weekend, which is going to be unusual for Austria. It's normally a sprint weekend, so 3 practice sessions. I think Mercedes is going to be strong around there. McLaren feel like they've got a car that's on the right step, but I think Ferrari might again be a team that can capitalise here. Like I say, it's quite a short lap, not so many big long straights. It's got a couple of long straights, but not so many as some of the traditional tracks. So that turbo they've got tends to spool up a bit faster. I think here might actually serve them quite well in terms of where they can go around. So I'm intrigued to see what the Ferraris can do after practice sessions going into qualifying. And Max likes the Red Bull Ring, doesn't he? He likes to put on a show for
It's
the home
home,
crowd.
home, isn't it?
Yeah,
Home
for
for the
the run.
team. Yeah. Well, look,
And
Charles did really well last year, though. He came third in the
yeah,
race. So, and that was behind the two McLarens with Piastri and Norris. So, obviously, Ferrari's better than McLaren this year. So, it's possible that Charles could still be right up there. And I'm sure that Lewis is bouncing off the walls at the minute after that win.
yeah, definitely. But I think the usual suspects are going to be at the top, aren't they? I think there's a coin toss, isn't there, between quite a few of them at the moment to who can get the car in the window. Like I say, 3 practice sessions, you kind of think they got enough time to dial it in compared to a sprint weekend as well. So I think we might see a lot of movement from Friday into Saturday as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the sprint weekends, just in case you are wondering. We've got that coming up at Silverstone again. And I remember that first sprint weekend a few years ago. Was that 2023?
Yeah, it's COVID
2023,
times, isn't it?
wasn't it? 23, I think.
Yeah,
So we've got it at Silverstone. We have a sprint weekend at Zandvoort, and we have the final sprint weekend at Singapore, which is going to be really fascinating having on the Singapore street circuit.
that just feels like a crazy call, doesn't it? Whoever designed that one,
It's going to be absolutely awesome, really, because I actually
100%.
think that there are some overtaking opportunities at Singapore, even though it's street circuit. So that could actually be a very, very good race. Is that somewhere you fancy going if you've not already been, Terry?
I've not been to Singapore. The hot and humid conditions I hear it's great there, but then I also hear how hot it is there, and I kind of go afterwards. I go, do you know what? I've heard about Texas in the October sun as well, where I'm like always wanted to do Austin. That's the bucket list one. Like I said, we've done Vegas, Barcelona. We did a couple of years ago as well. Silverstone, Monaco now. So we like to go. I like to go somewhere different. Dad likes to go. Dad's got Spa on his list. With Rouge, he's got a big thing about going to Rouge, so I wouldn't be surprised to see. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I've got
me,
roller boots, and I really want a roller boot down the route. I'd probably
yeah,
kill myself, but I'm like, I really want to. I don't know. I just want to go and get a roller boot down that hill. See how far
yeah,
up the other side I can get or on.
yeah. It's definitely. I think that might be on there, but no, I think Singapore. I'm not too keen on at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see.
It's not too bad. I mean, you acclimatise quite quickly. During the day, it's a lot harder. There usually are some storms, but everything's later on, so it's absolutely fine. I like it, and I actually went to Houston not long after I'd been to Singapore one particular year, and I couldn't. You can kind of walk around the streets in Singapore-ish a little bit during the day, but I couldn't walk around the streets at all in Houston. I was dying. So it was actually more humid in Texas this particular
Wow.
summer. But Austin isn't as humid. So Austin's really pleasant. Austin's a fabulous place. And that's my recommendation for you and your dad to go to next. Okay, then. Looks like we're coming to the end of this. I think we've talked everybody's ears off enough, Terry. If you like this podcast, then please follow me on Road to
Yeah.
F1 on socials and like and subscribe and all of the above to the podcast. I would love to hear from you if you have any accessible stories while attending race weekends or if there's anything that prevents you from attending. Thank you so much for joining me on Racing Beyond Barriers, Terry, at Coffee Corner Motorsport.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you also to Mal for translating this podcast into British Sign Language. Thank you, Mal. And thanks to everybody for watching, and I will see you next time.